Chapter 2, Refutation of the Wahhabi Creed. To avoid confusion, the correct creed will be discussed before discussing their incorrect creed. Know that Allah exists differently from anything else. His self is his reality, not a body. Yani, he is a self. And his self is his reality, not a body. He is alone without a beginning, because no one created him. He is the only creator. He was always everlasting without ever changing. He is absolutely perfect. No shape, no form. He existed without having made anything, so no time was passing. Yani, he was existing and no time was passing. Don't imagine in your mind that when we say Allah existed and nothing else existed and then he created things. Don't imagine that means he was existing for a long time and there wasn't anything. And then at some point he created something. He existed, there was no time. No time was passing. And in eternity, he was as he is. He lives without body or soul, and no sort of life support. He knows everything without a teacher or a heart and does not learn or forget. He has the power to make anything possible from nothing, without tools or exhaustion, but by mere will, putting things in different places at different times, giving them various shapes, colors, and tangibility, yani, making them tangible or intangible. Making them alternate between motion and stillness, providing for them, making things easy or hard for them, and creating life, choice, intellect, faith, and disbelief. And he creates what you do not know. His management is unhindered and uninterrupted. He cannot be distracted because he does not have limbs. He does not share anything with anyone. So he does not have a partner, wife, parent, son, branch, origin, nor opposite. Branch means like a son, like something that comes out of him. And he doesn't have an origin, something from which he came, nor does he have an opposite. So the devil, for example, is not opposite of God. He doesn't have an opposite. And the creations are not parts or attributes of his. He does not need anything and is not benefited by worship nor harmed by sins. He hears and he sees anything heard or seen, without ears or eyes, without looking into a direction, without need of volume, air, light, time, or space. Nothing is hidden from him. He speaks with an eternal, uncreated speech that is exalted from being of letters or sounds. It is not from organs touching or air moving, nor is it a voice, an utterance, or a pronunciation. It is his beginningless saying that does not stop or start. His attributes are not organs, emotions, or senses, and his speech is not a language. He does not look like anything and is different from whatever you imagine. Once I had a friend, he actually committed apostasy, unfortunately, when I was a whippersnapper. And so I was sitting on a step outside with this friend, and he had embraced Islam. I gave him a shahada. And we were talking, and he said to me just such a matter-of-fact way, meaning in such just a simple, common sense way, as if he gave no thought to it. He said, this makes sense. God don't look like nothing. And when he said that, I was like, wow, yeah, that's right. So he does not look like anything, and he is different from whatever you imagine. He is not made of particles, so he could not have color, shape, place, motion, stillness, texture, temperature, etc. All of that is created. He is not anywhere, nor is he everywhere. He has no beginning. So how could his attributes be created? Let there be no doubt that this is the correct belief in him, the just, wise, almighty Lord with the perfect names. The Wahhabis are body worshippers. So right here, in some places we have worshipper with 2 P's, some places we have with 1 P. Both of them are correct. For myself, I don't mind to do something like that. But even though I prefer 2 P's. But I don't mind to use correct language. Like, didn't the Quran have in it dialects, different Arabic dialects? Yes, it does. It does. Most of the Quran is Qurayshi dialect, but it has other dialects. And in Arabic, they do that. Yani, I don't want to go far here, but what I really mean to say is you don't have to make a big deal out of it if sometimes there's 1 P and sometimes there's 2 P's. For myself, I accept. But if you don't accept, don't do it. The focus of our discussion will be the Wahhabis' disbelief in the attributes of Allah. They claim the TawHeed, but they really believe in Tajseem, body worship. TawHeed is monotheism, and Tajseem here is body worship. Tajseem means bodifying, making something into a body. That's why, for example, a statue is, as a picture, a mujassam, as opposed to an illustration on a paper. That's not a mujassam formed into a body. So Tajseem means bodifying something. And I'm coining that word, bodify. I actually never found it, but I'm going to use it anyway. Their belief is that Allah has attributes whose linguistic meanings refer to a body. This means that the meanings they choose for those words imply or dictate a body, like organs, places, and motion. Notice the word meanings. They intend particular bodily definitions when they use certain words. Pay attention not only to the words they use, but also to the meanings they intend. They believe that Allah has a real face that should be understood literally, and that he has 2 real eyes and actually smiles and laughs. They claim that Allah starts speaking and stops whenever he wants. Ibn Taymiyyah said that. Fawzan said that in his explanation of Tahawi. Who else said that? Now, Yasir Qadhi said that in his book of Ulum al-Quran. He has an Ulum al-Quran book. I have a copy. They said that Allah starts speaking. He starts speaking and stops whenever he wants. And he speaks Arabic, according to them. And that whenever he creates something, he literally says, kun, 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 kun. They assert that Allah has a very real pair of outstretched hands, a real right hand and a real left hand that must be understood as stated, and that he really holds things in them. Some said he only has 2 right hands because a left hand would not befit him. They say he holds things in his hands, and they say Allah will ball up the sky in his hand, which that would mean then he's so big too. If he's going to ball up the sky in his hand, he's going to crumple the sky in his hand, that means he's huge. They also confirm for him real fingers. Some would say 2 fingers, and some would say 6. They have indeed been known to say that Allah sits on his throne, despite that many of them claim that this is a lie against them. Many of them say, when you say that they say that Allah sits, they would say, that's a lie! That's a lie! We never said that! But they usually say that he is above the seven skies, over his throne, separate from his creations, disconnected from them in a remotely high location, even though they won't say location. Yani, a lot of these words I'm saying, they won't say them, like remotely high or remote location. They will say high. The word high, they use that. And the word up, they use that. And over and above, they use all those. Remote location, that's me bringing out the fact of what they say. That's the part they want to hide, though. They believe that Allah descends from that remote location down to the first sky during the last third of the night, and then ascends back up, coming and going from one place to another, bound by time. Wal-'iyadhu billah. So that would mean he's created, because they related time to him. They say at the last third of the night he comes down. So if you told them, don't you know that means time? Then a Wahhabi might say, and? La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. You tell him time, that would mean he's created. The one who's eternal, time does not apply to him. They believe that Allah has a shin and a real foot with dimensions by which it fits inside hell when he steps into it on the day of judgment, according to them. According to them, when he steps into hell, then hell will say, I'm full. Enough. They even believe that he will cast a shadow. They firmly believe that all of these bodily references are the attributes of his self, and that they must be taken by their real, literal, apparent, and obvious meanings. As can be seen, they use Allah's name, but they refer to something imaginary. Compare this incorrect belief to the aforementioned correct belief in the previous section, and see easily that they do not believe in God. The point of mentioning their belief without mentioning their so-called proof is to expose the result of their analysis. Somebody might say, you didn't say their proof, you just said all of that. What about all the ayahs and hadiths they use? That's not fair. The point of mentioning their belief without mentioning their so-called evidence is to expose the result of their analysis. They misinterpreted many verses and hadiths to establish their beliefs, and this is the result. How Wahhabis justify their body worship? Question: do the Wahhabis actually say that Allah is a body? That's a detailed answer here. That's not just yes or no. There's detail here. What complicates the issue is that they usually deny that Allah has a body. On the contrary, they usually say that they do not believe that. So, if we wanted to just give a blanket answer, we might say, no, they don't actually say that usually. There's a qualifier, usually. However, some of them say that they do not confirm whether he has a body or not. So that means they're not saying yes or no, which is still blasphemy because they're being neutral. Neutrality in conviction is kufr. While others might heedlessly say that he has a body, but we do not know how it is, which also does not escape blasphemy. Why heedlessly? Because he's only going to say that when he's really dumb. He's not clever. He doesn't think ahead. So he would say, oh, we don't know how his body is. Question: what if the Wahhabi denies that Allah has a body? Yani, the meaning of the question is, well, you just accused him of that, so what if he denies it? If they deny that Allah has a body, it is because they understand that they would be clearly admitting that he is like his creations. Taking this position may be the case of most of them. Some of the God comparers, those of you who have experience with them, you know they're pretty stupid a lot of times. But some of those God comparers, they do understand the concept of body and corporeality and dimensions and attributes of bodies. But they believe in it anyway. They believe that about Allah. And then they won't come out and say it. Despite this denial, we know that they secretly believe that Allah has a body, because they hate for someone to say that he has no place or direction. So that one who says, no, he's not a body, then you can say, okay, so you agree then that he exists without a place. And then you'll see. Then his secret's going to come out. And they think that denial of place and direction is denial of his existence. So they believe he's a body then. And if they want to test your faith, they ask you, where is Allah? Had that been true, that denying a place for Allah is denying his existence, then where was Allah before he created places and directions? They have no answer for this. That's called ilzam. Ilzam is a question or an argument that has no answer. The opponent has no answer for it. Not because his lack of knowledge, because there is no answer. Those are the arguments you want to make when you debate. That's what the scholars used to do. Don't listen to someone who tells you, don't give them ilzam. Don't give your opponent ilzam when you debate with a person. They say, because when you give him an ilzam, when he tries to answer you, he's probably going to commit kufr depending on the issue. Like here, where was he before he created places and directions? Here, he has no way out of that but to just say, okay, you're right. So someone might say, don't ask him that, because if he tries to answer you, he's going to commit kufr. The scholars used to ask him that. That's how you crush your opponent. That's how you end the debate. You don't end the debate by giving them stuff they can keep answering. You end it by giving them stuff they can't answer. Question: what if they take a neutral position about Allah having a body or not? If they do not confirm whether he has a body or not, it is because they do not want to explicitly liken him to the creations, but at the same time, they do not want to reject the literal meanings that they hold to heart. This is still blasphemy, since being neutral and saying, I do not say if Allah has a body or not, is similar to doubting about Allah. It's similar to doubting. It's not doubting, though. It's being neutral. Doubt is different from neutrality. How is it similar to doubting? It is a lack of yaqeen. It's lack of certainty. And lack of yaqeen is certainly disbelief. It is the same as saying, I do not say if Allah exists or not, or has a partner or not. Whoever doubts or is neutral about any attribute of Allah that is known by necessity is not a Muslim. The Salaf said so. Imam Abu Hanifa, one of the heads of the real Salaf, said in his book Al-Wasiyyah, Man i'taqada hudutha sifatin min sifati Allah, aw shakka aw tawaqqafa kafar. Whoever believed in the createdness of an attribute among the attributes of Allah, whoever believed in the createdness of one of the attributes of Allah, or he doubted about it, or was neutral about it, has disbelieved. Compare that to the verbatim statement of Ibn Uthaymeen in his book Al-Liqa' al-Shahri. He said, Al-mutakallimu bil-lughati yatakallamu bil-lisan. Amma al-Rabbu azza wa jal, fala yajuzu an nuthbita lahu al-lisan, ولا أن ننفيه لأنه لا علم لنا بذلك. He said, the one who speaks a language does so by a tongue. As for the Lord Azza wa Jal, it is not permissible for us to confirm a tongue for him, nor to deny it from him, for we have no knowledge of that. That's what he said. That's blasphemy. Since there is no way to take both of these quotes, the quote of Abu Hanifa and the quote of Ibn Uthaymeen, they contradict each other. Which do you anticipate a Wahhabi who calls himself a Salafi would reject? Do you reckon he would disregard Abu Hanifa, an undisputed authority from the Salaf, or disregard Uthaymeen, a contemporary small fry? You know, we all know the answer to that. Whoever considers it possible for Allah to have a body, even if he did not believe that Allah actually had one, he just says maybe it's possible, he would blaspheme for deeming it possible. What would a Wahhabi say here? He would say, so even if he is from the Salaf, yani if he's mistaken, we're not going to take his mistake. So then what do you say to him? You say, so you have many corrections of the Salaf, don't you? And who was it who just happened to be the guys who are correcting the Salaf? This circle of ones correcting the Salaf instead of following them. We follow the Salaf. If anyone's Salafis, it's us. You, in your claim, you're correcting the Salaf. Question: would a Wahhabi actually say that Allah has a body? The less intelligent among them might say the secret aloud. So the answer is yes, he would. The less intelligent among them might say the secret aloud and confess that he believes that Allah has a body, because it is obvious that they describe a body, and he is too simple-minded to hide it. But he would then say that his body is not like our bodies, or that they do not know how his body is. As for saying that his body is not like ours, Imam Abul Fadl at-Tamimi, the head of the Hanbalis of Baghdad, a Hanbali pundit approved even by Ibn Taymiyyah, said that according to the great Ahmed ibn Hanbal, whoever says Allah is a body unlike bodies blasphemes. In the same book, Aqidatu Imam al-Mubajjal, he said, أنكر أحمد على من قال بالجسم وقال إن الأسماء مأخوذة من الشريعة واللغة. Ahmed objected to those who speak of the body, yani they attribute that to Allah. And he said, indeed, the names of things are taken from the sacred law and the language. وأهل اللغة وضعوا هذا الاسم على ذي طول وعرض وسمك وتركيب وصورة وتأليف والله سبحانه وتعالى خارج عن ذلك كله. As for the language, the linguists applied this name jism to what has length, width, depth, construction, image, and composition, and Allah, glorified and exalted, is beyond that entirely. وَلَمْ يَجِئْ ذَلِكَ فِي الشَّرِيعَةِ فَبَطَلْ. And that did not come used for God in the sacred law, so it is invalid. And saying we do not know how his body is blasphemy. The scholars of Islam have made it evidently clear that besides the fact that Allah has not a body, kayf, how, cannot be attributed to him. Throughout the books of the Sunni scholars, you would find that they said about Allah and his attributes, bila kayf, without a how, meaning without a manner of being. That means without a mode and without any way about him. He has no way about him. Thus, to say they do not know how he is to say that there is a how, but it is unknown to them. Saying that the how of his body in their claim is unknown does not negate the fact that they believe that he has a body. Just as saying the door is open, but I do not know how, does not negate the fact that the door is open. Likewise, they say, we do not know how he sits, or how he descends, or how his hands or eyes are, etc. What this truly means is that they do not know if he is sitting Indian style, or like one sits in the prayer, and they do not know if he descends head first, feet first, or like a belly flop, or a cannonball, or if he has a human hand, or a monkey hand, or an eye on the chin, or on the forehead, etc. Is it a squirrel hand? Is it a sloth hand? Is it a crab claw? So, if one of them says, we do not know how, tell him that the scholars of the real Salaf have agreed that there is no how, which is a categoric negation of any mode or fashion or manner of being, as narrated from the likes of Salama, the Prophet's wife, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. She said, وَالْكَيْفُ غَيْرُ مَعْقُولٍ. The how being attributed to him is not rational. غَيْرُ مَعْقُول means irrational, does not make sense. Similar to that was reported about Malik and Rabi'ah ibn Abi Abdul Rahman. If Allah willed, this point will be revisited in the section, The Truth About Istiwa. These people may have never learned the correct belief. So when they learned their incorrect belief and became attached to it, they developed warped reasoning. Their thinking is based on an unsound premise that Allah has attributed with these human attributes or created attributes. They also have other horrendous and contradictory claims, which need not be mentioned now. As a result, their thinking became twisted, like the Christians who say that Allah is one and is three while He is one. The Wahhabis believe that Allah has these human attributes, such as motion, organs, places, and directions, yet they claim that they believe that Allah is not similar to His creations. This is clearly unsound and incorrect. Wallahu a'lam. We'll stop there. You said one guy said, Kayfu ghayru ma'qul is the same as saying he doesn't know what it is. Yeah, that's why we have that footnote here. You said, what is mode or fashion? It's all those things that I just mentioned for you. So here, we just used many words to mean the same thing. Mode, or fashion, or way, or how, or manner of being. You say, how is it? You might say, what mode is it? What mode is a thing? That means, how is it? Or you'd say, in what fashion? That means, how is it? Is that clear? Ameen wa fikum. طيب. Any... Yes.
Sheikh,
when you talk to them about certain
hadiths, like for example, the Prophet said, like "Iqra'u Yasin ala mawtakum," or certain hadiths that like disprove what they're saying. They usually just rush and say, "Oh, it's da'if."
Yeah, that's their
or,
famous
like,
go-to, da'if hadith. Even if they have no knowledge of that, they'll say, "This is da'if hadith." Don't bring those da'if hadiths. That's how confident they are that they're right. They're so confident that they're right that they'll speak without knowledge and say that hadith is da'if. Once, a sister was arguing with a Wahhabi. So she called me and she said, talk to this guy. So I talked to him. I told him the hadith. Kan Allahu wa lam yakun shay'un ghayruh. Allah was and there was nothing other than Him. He said, don't bring these weak hadiths. That's a hadith in Al-Bukhari, Sahih Al-Bukhari. I told him, don't say it's weak. This is a Sahih Al-Bukhari. He said, well, it still doesn't mean that Allah exists without a place. I told him, you're not allowed to not think. You're not allowed to shut off your mind. He said, Allah existed and there was nothing other than Him existing. And then that guy, he just stopped talking to me. He gave the phone back to that sister.
Sheikh, I just had one thing to ask. We learned that.
Like other than Allah al-Mahfuz, like as they claim, there's nothing high above al-Arsh, correct?
We learned that there's nothing alive over the Arsh.
Okay.
I just so they insinuate, correct me if I'm wrong, that there's a space that's quote unquote not a creation.
Some of them say Allah is over the throne where there's no place. Yeah, but it didn't. It slipped them that they just said where. They say He's over the throne where there's no place. It's like they're saying He's over the throne where there's nowhere. Or it's like they're saying He's in the place where there's no place. And some of them say, I didn't say He's in a place. I said He's over the throne. That's how dumb they are. And stubborn. بارك الله فيكم غفر الله تبارك وتعالى لنا ولكم وتقبل الله طاعاتكم سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك